Good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the great state of Maine. You know the routine. Get your coffee. Sunday morning here at the cabin. Just kind of hanging out, waiting for Monday morning. So you want to own a cabin. I notice in my video that a lot of you are looking forward to owning a cabin. You want to build a cabin. You want to buy a cabin. So let's talk about that today. Let's talk about, if you want to watch how this place come about. This is Beaver Creek. This is my outpost to the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. This cabin sits on 15 acres of land in Western Maine, and I purchased, well, I bartered for it, but if you want to learn the story behind Beaver Creek, in my playlist, go to my homepage on YouTube, go to playlist, and then look down through the playlist until you find Building of Beaver Creek. And I don't know, there's 30 or 40 videos in there of how I purchased the land, getting started. If this thing is a mile back in the woods, I had a lot of legwork to do before I could ever get started on building the cabin. That means I had to put in a trail for the six-wheeler, the four-wheeler. I had to, a lot of stuff. But that's all in Building of Beaver Creek. So if you're watching these videos and you want a good playlist, that's a pretty good playlist on building a cabin in the state of Maine. But so you want to build a cabin. So let's talk about some of my ideas. And I'm not just a cabin builder. So I build one cabin. I built cabins all over the state of Maine my entire life. I started out in the contracting business of building anything and everything and repairing when I was 20 years old, and then I retired out of it about 10 years ago. So I got some experience on building these cabins here in the state of Maine. Now the cabins that I like are simple, rough sawn hemlock cabins. I know when I look around the state nowadays, the cabins that are being built aren't really cabins. I was fortunate enough this year. It's cold in here. I guess I gotta stir the fire here in a minute. But I've noticed in the last, I'd say the last 4 or 5 years. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to do a moose hunt this year, so I got up into the Rangeley Lakes area. The cabins that are being built, and these are brand new buildings, you can see, there's still equipment in the yard and the buildings are going up. They are not cabins. They are full-time homes. Some of them 2 stories. Some of them, 30 by 40 with massive garages and stuff like that. And they're people from away because almost everything in the Rangeley Lakes area is extremely expensive. It didn't used to be that way 30 years ago. You could buy a piece of property down on Mooselook-McGuntic for you weren't on the water, but you could get them for $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000, $8,000. Small pieces of land. I guess probably anywhere from 6 acres to 10 acres. But so all that has changed anyways. So you want to buy a cabin. Location, location, location. And how much are you willing to spend? What are you looking for? Get all that stuff in your head ahead of time. So that when you're out looking, and then, when I picked up my property up in Northern Maine, it was every weekend we'd go to Northern Maine and look at property. I would spend the week at home researching different property that was for sale, and then we would go up on the weekend and look at the property. Sometimes we could look at one property. Sometimes I tried to make it so that we could look at 2 properties. and then come home from it. You know, I know some days I had a third one on, but basically, I didn't make appointments with realtors and stuff like that. What I did was I found out addresses of the piece of property, and then I would just go to it. Not necessarily go in it, but see if it was an area that we liked. You know, Maine is big. You got different towns. You got different everything. So before you put your John Hancock on the dotted line for a cabin, you ought to make sure you like the area first. You know, there's just like I said, Maine is you know, some areas you won't like at all. And I'm not saying the people. I'm just saying the location. Maybe it's not the kind of hunting grounds that you like. Maybe it's not the kind of fishing that you like. Maybe it's too bony. Bony means rocks. I mean, there's some areas in this state that's nothing but rocks. And I know properties, the whole 40 acres, there's not a tree on it except for 40 acres of rocks. We're not talking little pebbles. We're talking boulders. So, I mean, that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at a piece of property here in the state of Maine. And then once you locate the location, then go in and fine-tune, is there something in there for sale? You know, used to be the west side of the state, you couldn't afford anything. The coastal stuff, you couldn't afford anything. And for a long time, the eastern side of the state is considered the forgotten part of Maine. What that means is very few tourists. And that's really what you're looking for if you want to keep the price down. Now, there's not going to be, there's not going to be too many amenities in an area like that. If you're accustomed to little thrift shops and tourist traps and stuff like that, you're not going to find that in the forgotten side of Maine. You know, to get to town, you might have to travel 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles, maybe more, depending on where you go. But almost all towns have got a local gas station. Maybe, you know, usually it's a little country store. In Northern Maine, I'm fortunate, about 10 miles away, south of me is a small grocery store. So if there's something I want, a little extra, or, you know, if I'm getting gas anyways at the local gas station there, which when you boat fish, you know, you can't, if you're up for a week or 2 weeks, you need gasoline for the outboard. So that's important if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for a place to go fishing, and you know, like you said, getting back to cost, anything on the water is going to be expensive, and you're going to have a lot more laws to deal with. A lot of the little towns up here look at waterfront property as a cash cow. So if you're looking to get out of that cash cow taxation, then look at the stuff that's off the water. And being on the water isn't all that it's cut out to be. It's not as dreamy as most people think. What do I mean by that? Well, for one thing, you know, if you plan on only using it the month of June, hey, that's going to be perfect for you. But if you're planning on going there late fall for deer hunting, or if you're planning on going there through the winter months, and even early spring, the bigger lakes, it's cold. It's cold and it's windy on the water. Yes, and it doesn't take a very big lake to give you a cold, windy spot right on the water. So if you're back in the woods just a little ways, you're still close enough to fish that lake. You're still close enough to do everything with that lake, but you're going to pay a whole lot less in taxes. You're not going to be the tax cash cow for the town that waterfront property is in, and you're going to get away from a lot of building problems. Anything that's right on the water is going to come with a lot of regulation. And when you step back from the water a little ways, you'll find with these little towns that you go there and they, oh, you got one of the back lots. You can pretty much do whatever you want. So that's something to keep in mind when you're talking location, location, location. when it comes to these cabins, and it plays into what you have in mind. For me, the back lots are perfect because it gets me off the water. I spend all day on the water in my boat. If I want to see water, I'll get in my boat earlier and stay until sunset. I've seen the lake. And not only, I've seen the lake from top to bottom, you know, from one side to the other. So if I want to look at water, I'll jump in my boat and go look at water. But when I want to get away from the cold wind that is associated with that lake, I want to be back on a back lot. So there's nothing wrong with a back lot. You know, so don't, you know, when you're looking at your property, you know, you're looking for a piece of land up here, and you say, oh, I can't afford it, I can't afford it. Go look at some back lots. Go look at some back lots so that maybe you can afford it. But, hey, time for a sip of coffee. I just figured I'd do a video on that. And because I'm sitting here on a Sunday morning enjoying this little outpost, and was thinking, you know, maybe, you know, there's ways of getting your cabin without breaking the bank. And maybe I ought to do a few series on this, but there are ways of making your dream come true without breaking the bank. And that's what I've done here with Beaver Creek. This place has literally cost me next to nothing to own. And if you go in there and check out building a Beaver Creek, you'll see what I mean. So, but anyways, this video's gotten long enough. Throw me a bone if you like this kind of stuff. I can tell by the number of subscribers per video. So if you like me going down this road, throw me a bone, subscribe to the channel, and if I see more than a half a dozen to a dozen or more, I mean, I've had videos pick up 100 subscribers. So if I see more than 10 or so subscribers adding to this, then we will definitely continue down this road. That means you guys are liking the video. So hey, I'll see you next week. And you guys have a great week.